Comeback for Vassilev, and Lukic! A banger of a strike for Jovan Lukic's first MLS goal!
It's fallen out to Westfield! Oh, wow! He's nearly taken the roof of the net off! Philadelphia pounce again!
Who gets his goal in his Union debut? The record signing, off and running in his first appearance for the club.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and your Philadelphia Union unfortunately dropped 2 points last night as they draw against Toronto FC 1-1 with an Indiana Vassilev goal in the 4th minute, followed by a DeAndre Kerr game-tying goal in the 91st minute. And so I have lots to talk about, some controversy. I know after the game, a lot of fans not too happy with the second goal given with Tai Baribo, and we'll be sure to talk about that. Play Bradley Cornell's thoughts on that goal being taken away, where he had thought that kind of killed the Union's momentum. We'll go ahead and talk about how the Union continue to concede goals the last 15 minutes in the first half and the last 15 minutes in the second half. Can the Union correct that with 8 games to go? We'll go ahead and talk about what Toronto did so well towards the end of the first half that made it difficult for the Union. And then we'll go ahead and talk about blunder of the week. But as you guys just heard in the intro, brand new intro, and so excited to finally get that done. And it looks so much better, honestly, on YouTube. So for everybody who's just listening on the RSS feed, you guys got to make sure you go on YouTube, check out the intro video. Very, very happy with how that came out. And we'll see. Do I stick with the hello and welcome? Does it fit with the new intro? I guess it's going to be a little bit of a trial and error, but I've been telling you guys, I feel like for the last couple months that we're going to get a new intro, and that's what we finally got. So I decided to go with a goal with Jovan Lukic, Frankie Westfield, and then Bruno Damiani scoring on his debut, which, yeah, I'm like, man, maybe I should have had Bruno's name in the intro. But again, if you guys are watching it live on YouTube, or if you guys go back and watch it on YouTube, you guys will see Bruno Damiani is included in the intro video. And so I'm super happy with how that came out, and hopefully you guys like that as well. Go ahead and pull up some comments. Jillian Almany says, yes, fire new intro. John says, W intro. Shaggy says, Todd the God, let's go. Jazz says, nice goal. Then Nada, don't understand the offsides call. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a bit. Michael says, hello and welcome, which, by the way, Michael, so glad to have you back on the live stream. Michael Wolves Finger, loved watching his updates on Instagram of him and his family in Alberta, Canada. And yeah, going to be heading there myself next year with my family, which, by the way, let's get happy birthday to my dad in the comments. It is his birthday. He may or may not be watching the live stream. I have no clue, but happy birthday, Bob. So let's get those dubs in the chat. But John says, hello and welcome has to stay forever. And Valerie says, hello and welcome. Vince chiming in saying, if any goal scored against the Union, they don't call it offsides. I'm filling a match fixing report against pro referees every time it happens. Valerie chimes in and says 9 minutes of extra time in this Cincinnati versus Charlotte game. Charlotte, I see, is up 1-0. You guys were telling me before we started the show. So keep me updated, because paying attention to the screen, paying attention to your comments, and not the game you guys are all checking out. So yeah, I appreciate it. You guys are all saying happy birthday to my dad in the comments. So let's go. Happy birthday. Which, by the way, too, yesterday was Mike Barrera's birthday from AAT Sports Across the Pitch. Jose Nunez's birthday was a couple days ago. So I don't know. It's something about August birthdays. And my birthday was in January, but I know so many people who were born in August. So I guess that's the month to be born in. But we do have a little bit of news to get to. And again, you guys keep me updated with the score of FC Cincinnati and Charlotte. As you guys had said, Charlotte is up 1-0 against Cincinnati as we're approaching the dying embers of the game. So hopefully Charlotte can continue to hold on to that lead. And I believe the game is being played in Cincinnati. Somebody in the comment section let me know. But That would be a huge win for Charlotte on the road. But without further ado, let's get straight into the news. All right, so we talked about Milan Iloski last episode with Dave Leno and Jose Nunez, which, by the way, shout out to Dave Leno for coming onto the podcast, gracing us with an hour 30. Was not expecting the podcast to go that long, but Dave's a legend, and we're going to go ahead and try to get Dave back on once playoffs are here. So loved having Dave on the podcast and loved having all you guys interacting with us. I do feel a little bit bad because I couldn't pull up all your comments like we normally do on the show, but yeah, the last episode was great with Dave and Jose. But the only bit of news that I want to go ahead and talk about is MLS finally releasing their playoff schedule. And I don't know about you guys, but actually, I do know about you guys because a lot of you guys, I'm sure, are going to agree with me. I hate the playoff format that we've had the last couple of years. I wish we would go back to single elimination. But MLS has announced that the wildcard matches will be on Wednesday, October 22nd, followed by the round one, best of three. The playoff format that nobody ever asked for begins on October 24th and concludes on November 9th. And then we have the conference semifinals scheduled for November 22nd and 23rd, followed by the conference finals on November 29th and 30th, followed by MLS Cup on December 6th. And so, all in all, MLS is looking at 45 days for their postseason. And, I love playoff soccer. I really do. But 45 days, it does seem like it's a little bit much, in my opinion. And now maybe we're not going to complain about that if the Union go on a run in the playoffs. We're like, yes, let's keep this run going. But I could also see a world where you guys are saying, okay, the Union to go on a run. Let's go to the next game. Like, come on, let's not wait and everything. So I don't know if we'll see MLS ever get rid of this format just because Apple's going to want as many eyes as possible on the playoffs with sponsorship and everything. But I think we all agree that the playoffs work best what it was a couple years ago, not when 63% of your league makes the playoffs and you have the best of three. And I get it. They want to give everybody a chance to host at least one playoff game, but doesn't that kind of water down the regular season then where you're rewarding the worst teams with one playoff game, one home playoff game? I don't know. Like, I guess I want to give these teams an opportunity to at least make a little bit of playoff revenue, but at the same time, it's like, then what's the point of trying to go on a hot run in the playoffs if you're guaranteed at least one home playoff game? It makes no sense to me. I hate the format the way it is, but I don't know. Maybe we're not complaining about it if the Union wind up winning MLS Cup this December. Shaggy says, end of December, New Year's Eve babies, ha ha ha. Jillian says, January birthdays rule. That's right, you were born in January, Jillian. 6 minutes left, John says. Charlotte's still up. Yes, games in Cincy. I appreciate that, guys. Keep me posted on the score. And Michael says, good for us for Cincy fumbling. Straight red card. Who got the red card in that game? Shaggy says Leno is the legend. So are you, Shaggy. I when Dave said that a guy named Shaggy had the giant head of Dave Leno made, I was like, I wonder if that's Shaggy who always comments on the show. So you're the legend for getting the giant pop-up head of Dave Leno made. John says, couldn't listen live, but the last podcast was a great listen. Appreciate that. Valerie says, stupid playoff schedule. Jazz says, Bulls steal it late. They'll be pumped to take us out. Yeah, they would. Cole says, the offseason for those who go far is really short, but I guess that's all soccer. Shaggy says, make sure and smash that like button. It helps grow the channel. Look at you. Look at you doing the job for us, Shaggy. I appreciate that. Vince says, single game elimination. Why do we need best of three just to give Miami a second game before they're eliminated? Yeah, hey, I agree. Aguna for Cincinnati, that is. So, yeah, I mean, looks like Cincinnati's probably going to wind up losing this game. And, yeah, it's great because the Union will stay in first place then in the Supporters Shield, have a 2-point lead, I believe it is, over Cincinnati. And, man, it sucks because they could have got all 3 points last night. Then you have an even bigger lead. And you see last night, Nashville falls to St. Louis 3-1. And, yeah, a lot of favors, a lot of results going the Union's way. It looks like Columbus Crew, obviously, don't have a match. Didn't have a match this week. They play next weekend against August, so they do have a game in hand, but they have 44 points compared to the Union's 51. So the one team you got to be afraid of is Inter Miami. Miami is a team with a bunch of games in hand, but man, just seeing the results go the way of the Union, and they still come away with a point. They still increase a slight lead over Cincinnati. That's great. And like I said last episode with Dave Leno and Jose, that game in Cincinnati in a couple of weeks, that's really going to feel like a playoff game. That's going to be a huge, huge, huge game that could determine or should determine playoff seeding for when we do start up the playoffs. A lot of you guys in the comments are saying great save by Kalina. Final, Valerie says 1-0 Charlotte. So it's a huge result for the Philadelphia Union as Charlotte go into Cincinnati and get all 3 points. Get a late goal from Wilfred Zaha. You guys had said in the comment section in the 85th minute. So yeah, it's great for the Union, but still wish they could have got all 3 points last night. But regardless, I appreciate you guys for keeping me updated on what went on in that game. And yeah, it's fantastic to see the Union now get a little bit of a lead. But yeah, this playoff format, it's so dumb. Single elimination and really dragging out the playoffs with just too many dates. 45 days, just way too long. But look, doesn't matter, I guess, if the Union go on a run, people are going to be happy. But I have nothing else to say about this playoff schedule, and I don't think you guys do either. But if you do, we can go ahead and pull back up those comments later on in the show. Let's get straight into last night's Philadelphia Union versus Toronto game. 1-1 score. Indiana Vassilev in the 4th minute. DeAndre Kerr in the 91st minute. And where do we start? I mean, I guess we can talk about the lineup with the Union. Only 2 changes from the lineup we saw 2 weeks ago against Colorado. We saw Nathan Harriel come in for Olivier Bizo, and then Jesus Bueno coming in for Jovan Lukic, who was or is 1 yellow card away from being suspended. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Bradley Cornell decided not to start Jovan in this league game against Toronto, just in case he would get a yellow card and then he would miss the game against New York Red Bulls. We do know Jakob Glesnes got a yellow card in this game, so he'll miss the game against New York Red Bulls over the weekend, which, by the way, soft yellow card and no for Jakob Glesnes. It just seemed like a coming together. Didn't seem like there was really anything in it. And then the fact that VAR said, oh, there might be violent conduct in this, we'll let you know, Tori Penso. I mean, when you watch the foul back, I'm like, this is just typical. I mean, the amount of times that Bruno Damiani got knocked to the ground this game and he didn't draw yellow cards, it's like Damiani took more content than what Bren Hildson did for Charlotte, the player that Jakob Glesnes had a coming together with. But what a soft call, and yeah, it's a huge loss for the Union against New York Red Bulls over the weekend with now down another center back. We know Jan Glavinovic is still out, and who knows if we'll see him anymore this season. And it is a shame. And I would imagine that we'll probably see Nathan Harriel and Makanya as the 2 center backs against New York Red Bulls. Frankie Westfield comes in as the right back, and of course you're continuing to have Kai Wagner as your left back. But yeah, what a soft call. I mean, I really, really, really don't believe that was yellow card worthy. And listening to some fans after the game, just walking down from the press box into the press conference room, I heard some fans when I was walking saying they thought Tori Pensos was not good on the night. I saw or heard some people say that they thought she caught a pretty good game. And I don't know where you guys stand on the referee decisions last night. I would imagine because the Tai Baribo goal got taken away, I think some people would probably disagree and say that, yeah, Tori had a horrible game last night. But I don't think she was terrible, but I do think that was a terrible call on the Jakob Glesnes foul. Jillian says it was soft. I had a great view of it. And John says, yeah, it was a little harsh on Glesnes. Vince says the reason VAR check was so quick is because they realized it wasn't a foul. Absolutely embarrassing. Shaggy says, sorry, and I hate to bash the refs, but man, Tori was not very good. Cole says, definitely saw, but Glesnes could use the rest. That is true. Is this his second game now this season that he's missed because of yellow card accumulation? I feel like that's correct, but you guys would probably correct me in the comment section if I'm incorrect. Michael says, I had not great things about Torrey from the last Miami game against FC Cincinnati. That was poorly officiated game. Cole says she had a big mistake in the Cincy Miami game, but it helped us out a lot. So yeah, Michael and Cole in agreement on that. Yeah, Vin says 2 games rep by Pro yesterday and both were god awful. I wouldn't wish watching soccer rep by them on Red Bull fans. Yes, second game this season. You guys are saying that Jakob Glesnes is now missed on yellow card accumulation. So, yeah, that's disappointing. That Glesnes picking up lots of yellow cards, but I guess that's what you expect for your center backs, especially a team that plays as aggressive as the Union. And when I last looked a couple days ago, the Union did lead MLS in fouls. I'll try to pull it up here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Union still lead teams in fouls. I wonder, you guys can pull it up too while I look at fouls. I wouldn't be surprised if the Union lead MLS teams in yellow cards. I mean, they foul so much, and I feel like there's always so many questionable calls that go against them. And we'll talk about that Houston game, I think, too, a little bit later on in the show, because to give the Union a penalty kick, still a little bit salty about that, then pull it away. I mean, come on, what are we doing? Fouls, 382 the Union lead, and yellow cards, the Union also lead with 70. So yeah, I mean, you expect that with the Union, with them to always play aggressive, always to have more fouls than the opposition. They like to rough teams up, and I just don't agree with the call that Torrey Penzo said that was a yellow card. Morial Jazz says, nice. So I would imagine that Orlando City's up on Inter Miami, which can also help the Union. So yeah, hopefully Orlando City continues to roll against Inter Miami again. Keep me updated on what's going on in that game, guys, and I appreciate that. But I do want to talk about the Indiana Vassilev goal before we talk about the goal that the Union conceded, and why, in my opinion, I thought the Union really struggled after they scored that goal. And so you go back and watch that goal, and the Union, I mean, they've had moments like this throughout the season where they play really, really, really great soccer, really great first-time passing, moving into space. You had Coelho switching the play over to Richie Larea on the right side of the field, Union's left side. It's a heavy touch by Larea. Kai Wagner, 50-50, ball eventually comes to Damiani. But what I love about this play is just on the left sideline, the triangle passing from Kai Wagner, Daniel John Jock, and Quinn Sullivan. Toronto, they started this game playing a back 3, a back 5 when they're defending, whatever you want to call it. And so that meant that they were playing with attacking fullbacks. They were playing with wingbacks. And so the positive of that is you're going to get a lot of 1v1 defending with your center backs. But when you need your wingbacks to track back, and they don't track back like they didn't on this goal, then you get exposed. And Toronto changed that 25 minutes into the game, realized that they were giving the Union way too much time and space. But it was really good passing by the Union on the left side of the field. A lot of quick first-time passing between, like I said, Kai Wagner, Daniel John Jock, and Quinn Sullivan. The ball eventually comes to Tai Baribo, and that's exactly what the Union wanted to do in this play. Quinn Sullivan pulled Rosted, one of the 3 center backs, out of position, and then that left 2 center backs 1v1 against Bruno Damiani and Tai Baribo. And now you have a man advantage on the right side of the field because Corbeanu doesn't track back. And so it's great vision by Tai Baribo to find Indiana Vassilev looking straight down the right side of the field. Good touches for Indy. Scores with his weaker right foot. But we see the Union throughout the season score goals like this where it's just great first-time passing, quick movement into space. And they're a very quick team. They're very dynamic. And I think maybe because the Union scored so early in this game, that probably cost them a little bit, if we're being honest. And the Union seemed to get a little bit lax. They they decided, or it seemed like they took the foot off the pedal and thought, okay, look, we can go ahead and roll with this. We don't have to worry about Toronto coming back in this. They're just going to lay down. And the opposite happened in this game. And it's crazy when you look at the first half. Only 3 shots for the Union, 2 shots after the goal by Indiana Vassilev, only 1 shot on target, which was the Vassilev goal. I mean, the Union really didn't create anything after that. They got lax, and there was moments where you saw a lot of space on the right-hand side of the field. I don't know if you guys could see that on the stadium. I don't know if you guys could see that on the broadcast, but sitting higher up, you could see so many opportunities on the right side of the field with Vassilev, with Nathan Haverhill just running into space because you had Theo Corbino just not tracking back. And credit to Robin Fraser for realizing that and making a quick tactical change and switching to a back 4. And because of that, the Union struggled, in my opinion. They really did struggle once Toronto made that switch. And I saw your comment on Twitter, Vince, where you're like, yeah, you're curious to hear my thoughts on what changed for Toronto. And I'm probably making it sound more simpler than what it really was, but it was a big switch where Toronto, they're lining up with 3 in the back, 5 when they're defending, or it should have been 5 when defending. And they realized that it was just so much space on the right-hand side with Haverhill and Vassilev just running down the right side of the field with Corbino just not tracking back. And so once they switched to that 4-2-3-1, they decided to play Larea and Petretta as the 2 fullbacks, which Petretta is a natural fullback. They played him as one of the 3 center backs when they were playing a back 3. And so because of this, you then can play Corbino in his natural out wide position. He's more of a forward than he is a wing back, but Robin Fraser wanted to play fullbacks against the Union. Thought that they could exploit space out wide, pull the Union's 2 fullbacks, Nathan Haverhill and Kai Wagner, out wide, and they actually still did, even though they switched to a 4-2-3-1. And the Union struggled. They struggled a lot. You saw it on the goal that the Union gave up when they bring in Henry. Kai Wagner gives up way too much time and space for him to come out and play the cross into DeAndre Kerr. But it wasn't just that moment. It was throughout the night. I thought Toronto had a game plan coming in. They wanted to attack Kai Wagner down that left side of the field, their right side of the field. And for whatever reason, Kai Wagner was just giving way too much space to the outside midfielders. Occasionally you would get Quinn Sullivan tracking back and helping out defensively, but it didn't happen all night long. And maybe Kai Wagner was expecting Quinn to come out a little bit more and help track these fullbacks and track these midfielders with him. But instead, Kai is playing more compact, playing closer inside the center of the field and giving these outside midfielders just time and space. And he got burnt on the game-tying goal by DeAndre Kerr. Jakob Glesnes got burnt on that play too, where Kerr starts at the back shoulder and then he cuts inside him. Really poor defending there by Jakob Glesnes. But I do wonder if you get better defending by Kai Wagner there on that play, if he shuts down the time and space out wide, does Henry have that good of a cross into the 18-yard box? Probably not. And so when they make this switch to a 4-2-3-1, the fullbacks, they stay back a little bit more. Yeah, there was moments when they pushed them up, but they were staying back a lot further back than when they were playing 3 in the back. And so because of that, I don't think the Union really had the space out wide that they did 25 minutes into the start of the game. And now because of that, now you got to try to play through the middle. But the problem was there wasn't a lot of space in the middle of the field either. Toronto, they were playing between the lines, in my opinion, a little bit too easy. Mihailovic, who it's so weird too, 2 weeks ago you see him with Colorado, now you see him with Toronto, and he played better, in my opinion, this game with Toronto than he did 2 weeks ago with Colorado. He was finding so much space. He was able to link up well with Bryn Hilton and the 2 outside midfielders. I thought Toronto, they did so well just to close down time and space very quickly. And the Union really struggled, and it seemed like they didn't really have a game plan for that. And when we look at the second half, the Union's best chances, they came outside the box, twice with Danley and John Jock, and then once with Jesus Bueno. Danley and Jesus both hit the target once, but the Union really couldn't get anything going because of the time and space that Toronto closed down, and you feel like it was a missed opportunity for the Union, and you really do. A struggling Toronto team who only had one win in the last 5 games, and that one win came on the road against San Diego, which, okay, maybe fans, maybe people in the media, myself, maybe I should have given a little bit more credit to Toronto for the way they approached this game, because to go in San Diego and get all 3 points, it's a good result. But to Toronto's credit, they didn't back down. They had a game plan. It didn't work within the first 25 minutes. They switch it up, and now they're bringing all the pressure to the Union. And so Bradley Cornell, in his opening statement, he talked about how the second goal kind of frustrated the Union that they didn't get. That took away, but he also praised Toronto for how they approached this game. And even though they're in 12th place, they're still a really good team. And this is what Bradley Cornell had to say about Toronto's performance.
I think they closed down spaces pretty well. They went man for man in many moments, and we couldn't find our build-up spaces. And when the ball turns over, then we in defensive transition, we caught a little bit between the lines there with probably Jesus Bueno, Danley, Nate, and Kai, maybe a little bit further up the field than we would have liked at certain times. Just trying to find the overall control within that, and I said the frustration starts to creep in. So guys, I think I got to do more. I got to chase the game a little bit, and we were leading the game 1-0. No reason to need to chase the game.
Yeah, that's a good observation there by Bradley Cornell, saying that even though they had the 1-0 lead, it seemed like the Union were chasing the game. It seemed like they were the ones that were down in this game, and I do agree with that assessment. But I do think that Bradley's right too, that it was a lot of man-to-man, and they got the best of the Union when they started playing more man-to-man, when they switched to that back four, and the Union just really didn't have any plan going forward. They were frustrated, you heard Bradley Cornell say, by Toronto, and I do wonder, we're 8 games into the season, or 8 games until the end of the season, and I would imagine a lot of teams are going to look at this performance by Toronto, where this is a rebuilding Toronto team, but they were able to come into Subaru Park with the roster they have that's a work in progress, and come into Subaru Park and get a result like that. And I do wonder if, now to Bradley Cornell's credit, he's not afraid to change up the lineup. I would expect we see change on Wednesday against Red Bulls in the US Open Cup. I would expect change on Saturday in league play while the Union go up to Harrison to take on Red Bulls. But can we see teams approach the way that Toronto came into Subaru Park? Can we see that going forward? Will the Union be able to adjust to that? That's a good question. Cole says, Quinn was putting his crosses on a silver platter. It's a shame we did not score any. Yeah, absolutely. Shaggy says, Dylan John Jock should have had a goal. Yeah, I mean, he had 2 good looks, I thought, outside the 18-yard box and unable to find the back of the net. But when you're shooting from distance, I mean, it's got to be a special strike to beat any goalkeeper. And unfortunately, Danley's not able to find the back of the net. And Jazz says, weren't to pass to Michael, Art Deco state of mind. Vince says, it's also where erroneous yellow cards come into play. 3 Union defenders on yellows meant out of position. No one could take a yellow for stopping a promising attack or a hard foul. Yeah, that too. Yellow cards definitely play a factor. Shaggy says it seems like a lot of teams' plans are to go at Kai. And I've noticed that too. And maybe that's part of the reason why, as good as Kai is going forward, creating chances, he's a better fullback going forward than he is defending. And maybe that is part of the reason why Kai Wagner is still in MLS all these years, because I do think there is moments where Kai is good at 1v1 defending, but also, like you see on the goal that the Union concede, yeah, there's a lot of moments like that with Kai. Sometimes Kai ball watches. And I was thinking about this too. you guys probably notice this at the games. It always seems like Kai Wagner is always chirping at Makanya for something. Every time that Makanya has at least one mess up, Kai's always having a go at him. And I wonder if that's just Kai not fully trusting Makanya. And so because of that, maybe he changes how he plays defensively a little bit. I don't know. It's just something I've observed where Kai's just always having a go at Makanya every single game, at least once. And I'm sure you guys that sit in the river end, you guys probably see it all the time as well. Cole says, correct me if I'm wrong, but post-game Bradley said Kai, Breno, Danley, and Nate were going up a little too much. Yep, absolutely. I think that was before I played the clip. John says, probably unfair for me to criticize because he plays every full 90, but Kai defensive work rate falls off hard in the last 10 minutes of some games. Yep, and we'll definitely talk about the Union's performance in the last 10 minutes of each half, really. Michael says, true, maybe sub Kai off at the 90th minute. Vince says, unfortunately, Danley, Lukic, Breno are all better finishers than Damiani, but they only shoot from outside the box. Unless you're Jevan Lukic a couple games ago, right? When he's 1v1 and he's unable to find the back of the net. And fortunately for him, Mikal Uhr scores a brace against Colorado. Shaggy says a tie at home this time of the year is just heartbreaking, especially when, you score so early in that game, go 4 minutes up, and Andrew Blake comes out with a couple good saves, and you're approaching stoppage time, and you can see in stoppage time, it's like, what a terrible, terrible, terrible time to concede a goal. Jazz says Damiani is Artagesta at this point. Oh, man. Why'd you have to bring out that name? Aristogeta. Sorry, Aristogeta. Great spelling, Jazz. Yeah, absolutely. Aristogeta. What a throwback. What a throwback. I do wonder, because it is funny, too. During COVID, I don't know how many of you guys were listening to the podcast back then, but we obviously didn't have games going on for a little bit. And so I hosted a game show on the podcast. And so I started looking up just all these player names and everything. And I started having this trivia show and inviting you guys, the fans, on the show to compete against each other, testing your Union knowledge. And man, I was really like, when we would go farther down into the later rounds, man, I would really dig names out of the rabbit hole. And I do wonder if a lot of fans, like current fans, know a lot of these names, because I feel like the last couple of years with all the success the Union have had, granted, it hasn't come with a trophy, but I do wonder if a lot of this fan base still remembers some of those older names. I would say it's probably split 50-50. If you go up to random Union fans in the stadium and ask them a player like Aristogeta, they'd be like, who? Is that a player? Like, what is that? Michael says, I'm a fan of Breno, but I agree. I need him to finish better. A lot of great comments. Cole says, I'm not a fan of Kai's body language. It's what annoyed me most about Gazak. Yeah, shrugging. And it's funny you mention Gazak, Cole. I do have a soundbite to play for Blunder of the Week. Valerie says, dang, I'm sorry I missed that trivia show. It was fun. I think we did it twice. Back-to-back years, did it in the off-season. One during COVID and then one in the offseason, and had a lot of fun. Vince says Ethan White costing Blake a shutout in his first start against Crystal Palace with an own goal. Shout out Ethan White. Jazz says big South American who was billed as good in the air. Yeah, bring Casper back. Which, by the way, Casper just signed for, I forget the team, but a team in the second division in Poland. And I believe when I read the news report, apparently that was the first time that Casper has ever played professional soccer in Poland, despite having a Poland heritage. But yeah, regardless, credit to Toronto for making the adjustments that they made last night to really make it difficult for the Union, and for the Union's best chances all night to come minus the goal that Indiana Vassilev scored. Their best chances coming outside the box. I mean, it's always going to say it takes something very, very special to beat the goalie when you're shooting from distance. But that does bring me to Tai Baribo's disallowed goal. Would have made the game 2-0 in the 56th minute. But VAR, after giving the goal, Tori Pensos goes to the monitor, says that, yep, Tai Baribo, he's offside. And I just don't get this call. I really don't get this call. And I hate blaming referees. I'm not one to blame referees. And I know we talked about the referee in Houston a couple weeks ago. Bad referee performance. This was nowhere close to that, in my opinion. But when you go back and watch that goal and you watch the replay, it makes no sense to me. Coelho, the midfielder for Toronto, deflects Kai Wagner's free kick towards Damiani at the back post. Damiani heads it off the post. How many times have we seen Damiani hit the post crossbar this season? So many times. And then you have Baribo there to head the rebound home. And yes, Baribo is offsides initially when Kai Wagner kicks the ball, but he doesn't affect the play. He's nowhere close to Coelho. Nowhere close. And so I'm not sure why they decided to say, yeah, Baribo is offsides. He interferes with the play, whatever. No goal. When, yes, he is initially offsides, but he has nothing to do with the initial ball played in. It makes zero sense. It makes zero sense. Jess says, Tai was off, never played the ball. Dude stuck his leg out, puts everyone on. It's pretty clear Tori just doesn't know ball, Michael says. Makes zero sense to me. Zero sense. And Bradley Cornell not happy with the call during the press conference. And then afterwards, in the Union locker room, him and Ernst Tenner, irate in the locker room. Could not believe that call. They were not happy. And I was told with people that went to Houston, apparently Ernst Tenner was the same way in Houston after the game when they originally give the Union the penalty, then they take the penalty away for Nathan Harriel fouling. Unbelievable. And so, I don't know. Next Saturday, I think that's when Pro comes out with their decisions. I guess we'll see if they say, yep, Tori Penzo made the right call on the field. No, she didn't make the right call. I mean, I would imagine that Pro's probably going to back her since they sent her to the monitor. She had a look and she said, yep, Tai Baribo, he's offsides. And we're going to take away the goal. It makes no sense when Tai Baribo had nothing to do with the play. He scores, yes, but the ball wasn't aimed at him. Doesn't get in Coelho's way. Toronto player sticks his leg out and he deflects the ball to Damiani. It's a ridiculous call, but Bradley Cornell in his opening statement talked about that disallowed goal and how it kind of changed the momentum for the Union for the rest of the game.
When we earned the second goal, I'm still waiting for the clarification on that. I've looked at it a couple of times, still not sure. And then that just sways the momentum of the game. It just kills it just kills something in us. And I felt we struggled to deal with that. Even though we brought on fresh legs at the end of it and try to get fresh 9s, fresh 10s on the field. Unfortunately, we concede in the 90th. So yeah, sometimes we score in the 90th, 94th, 96th. Wasn't meant to be. They get one. We have to walk away with a point. You can see they renewed energy. Georgi Mihailovic picks up good spaces, floats between the lines, and then creates some real problems. So, the parity in this league can be very evident at times.
And I guess that's what makes MLS so exciting, right? Any given week, anybody can win. I mean, look at tonight. Charlotte going into Cincinnati. Did you guys expect that? Toronto coming into Philadelphia, picking out a result, especially when you look at the last couple of seasons, the Union have put up multiple goals against Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. I remember 2 years ago, I think it was, Mikal Uhre scored a hat trick in the rain against Toronto. Sergio Santos scored a hat trick a couple years ago against Toronto at Subaru Park. So Toronto's not been good at Subaru Park the last few years, and they come in and hold the Union to 1 goal. They get a late equalizer. Probably should have been 2 goals for the Union. But you heard Bradley Cornell say that kind of affected how the Union played the rest of the game. And you've got to be better mentally. You've got to stay locked in. And to see the Union, in my opinion, take the foot off the pedal. We talked about it after they score the first goal. You got to stick it to Toronto. And it was unfortunate to see that the Union just, for whatever reason, well, we know the reasons, we talked about it, but yeah, just couldn't create more chances, couldn't finish off more chances. And after you had 27 shots, I think it was a couple weeks ago, 28 shots a couple weeks ago against Colorado, 11 shots on target, 12 shots on target. to now end this game against Toronto with 12 shots total, 3 shots on target. I mean, it's crazy, night and day difference. But maybe Toronto, I mean, you heard Bradley Cornell say it's a renewed energy with that team. They get rid of the 2 Italians. They bring in Mihailovic, who's their only DP on the roster. It's a complete rebuild. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of players playing for positions on this team next year. And they took it to the Union. They were not afraid after conceding so early in this game. Vince says Bradley whines occasionally, but he was yelling at the 4th official on the AR, and one of the coaches had to send him down to save him a card. Jazz says league makes it up as it goes along. Screw the U at every opportunity. Cole says no matter Tai is there or not, the defender is sticking his leg out. Absolutely. Valerie says I don't think I'd like to be around Tanner when he's mad. Yeah, Ernst Tanner was not happy at all. Cole says they probably won't even include inside a pro video. You're probably right. Vince says you have to pro-proof your game for the superstar teams. That's only up 1 goal for the Union. It needs to be 3-6 depending on the referee. Michael says I was catching a layover flight home during the game. I saw the first 25 minutes, so I expected a shutout. Really surprised when I landed. It was 1-1. Ooh, that's so disappointing. You're in the air. You're expecting the Union to hold on, get a clean sheet, and they wind up drawing 1-1 against Toronto. I'm sorry, Michael. I'm sorry. That's what you had to land back to. But yeah, unfortunate call. I don't agree with it, and we'll see what Pro says. We'll see if Bradley Cornell got that decision that he's waiting for. Maybe he's still waiting on it, just like the rest of us. But the last thing I do want to talk about before we get into blunder of the week is the Union dropping points, because yeah, that is a team that Bradley Cornell says renewed energy. You have players that are playing for their jobs next season. I do think it's a bad Toronto team, maybe not as bad as the standings say they are, but still, this late in the season, you got to get all 3 points. You got to get all 3 points against teams like Toronto, who sit in 12th place, only 22 points on the season. You got to get results against them. You got to get 3 points this late in the season. If you want to fight for titles, if you want to be a serious Supporter Shield contender, that's a game you got to win. The Union dropped points 3 weeks ago against Houston Dynamo. Is that really the Union's fault? Maybe not. With how poorly that game was refereed, maybe not. But again, you want to take care of your business and don't allow referee decisions to dictate how the game goes. Union created some chances against Toronto, but didn't really put too many shots on target, only 3. And so I think the Union would blame themselves more than they would the referee. Yeah, they probably do feel hard done that the second goal got taken away, and maybe the floodgates start to open if the Union gets that goal with Tai Baribo. Maybe Toronto pushes a little bit more. Maybe they're forcing things, and now the Union can go and score a couple more goals, and maybe it's a big blowout win. Maybe not. We'll never know. But you've got to get results against teams like Toronto. You've got to get 3 points. They've now dropped points against Inter Miami when they were up 3-1 after the 75th minute. They give up a 95th minute equalizing goal. And they drop points against Columbus Crew at home, concede an equalizer in the 93rd minute. You concede an equalizer now in the 91st minute. In Toronto, too, they almost won. They had another chance. I forget what minute it was in stoppage time, but the shot wasn't on target. It was close, but I was like, wow. I mean, imagine the Union go 90 minutes in this game up 1-0, and you just got to see out the remaining time in stoppage time. You concede the first minute in stoppage time, and you almost give up a second goal. That would have been comical to see. I think it was actually DeAndre Kerr, too, if I'm not mistaken. He had a header from a corner, if I'm not mistaken, towards the end of stoppage time. But yeah, to see the Union now concede 3 goals, and I know they've scored late goals in games. They had a comeback victory months ago against LA Galaxy. Bradley Cornell's talked about, you're going to have moments like these games. But against Toronto? Really? Against Toronto? That hurts. And yes, the Union come away with a point, but you guys at the beginning of the show are talking about how it's a huge result for the Union that Cincinnati lost 1-0 to Charlotte. Imagine if the Union win that game. Nashville lose last night to St. Louis. Now tonight, Cincinnati loses. the Union would have had 2 more extra points, they could have been up 53 points. 53 points they could have been on right now, where Cincinnati sits on 49. And now you have a 4-point cushion. And now it wouldn't feel like a must-win game going in Cincinnati. You could you could be okay with getting a draw in Cincinnati in a couple weeks. And maybe you still could be. But I feel like maybe there's a little bit more pressure for the Union to come away with 3 points away at Cincinnati. That's going to be a huge game, a playoff-like atmosphere, I would imagine, at TKL Stadium. But you've got to get points against bad teams like Toronto. You got to get all 3 points. It's 8 goals now in the final 15 minutes in the first half that the Union have conceded. 9 goals that they've now conceded in the final 15 minutes. They've conceded equalizers or go-ahead goals 7 times this season to Nashville, Montreal, LA Galaxy, Columbus, Montreal, Houston, Colorado. 7 equalizers or go-ahead goals, and that's all in the final 15 minutes of games. 8 goals, I said, conceded in the final 15 minutes in the first half. And I know they don't concede one in the first half in this game, but that's really, really poor. And so Bradley Cornell, the reason I bring that up is because Bradley Cornell was asked about how this team defends in the final 15 minutes of the first half and the second half. Is that something they can correct, that they can get better at with 8 games to go on the season? This is what Bradley Cornell had to say.
The intensity we play at and the levels we play at and the way we push the guys in training. And sometimes we squeeze games late in training just to make sure that the guys are on, high alert with certain moments. And you maybe blow a foul. You try and keep the edginess in training in many ways. So, and I think it's totally natural. We try and get Milan out on his, representing us on his debut, trying to get him integrated in as soon as possible. So, listen, there's a bit of work to do still. There's 8 more games, and we're going to push and see where we'll end up at the end of the season. So, again, this is a journey.
And Bradley Cornell's used that line a couple times this season, saying it's a journey. But you have 8 games left, playoffs approaching. You want to work out these kinks, because you're going to get punished in the playoffs if you continue to concede late goals. If you continue to concede goals the way that you do. It's got to be better defending by Kai Wagner, better defending by Jakob Glesnes on that goal that DeAndre Kerr scores. But 8 points at home from even/winning positions. 8 points lost, Jazz says. I mean, it's ridiculous. Toronto, in his opinion, was better for him from the 30th minute. Philly ran out of stamina and ideas at the end. They definitely did run out of ideas. But, yeah, I mean, we've seen it all season long. 8 goals conceded in the final 15 minutes in the first half. Now 9 goals conceded in the final 15 minutes. And you don't want to talk about trends, but it kind of is a trend, right? It kind of is. And yeah, you could correct things. And you heard Bradley Cornell saying, yeah, we were intense in training, and they could do different things in training to try to correct these results. But you kind of what you are, right? This late into the season, 26 games in, you are what you are. And hopefully the Union can stop conceding that late in the first half in games. Stop conceding equalizing goals or goals to go ahead in the first half. Stop conceding equalizing goals in stoppage time in the second half. Because you're going to be punished in the playoffs if that happens. And so it feels like a loss last night. It really does feel like a loss, and it's disappointing. It is disappointing. Valerie says, so what did we see from Milan last night? His first touch in the game, right, was a shot. It was blocked. And I know a couple of us in the press box, we were saying, man, imagine if Milan's first shot winds up in the back of the net. I mean, he just didn't get enough service from here, right? He was making hard runs. Mikael Uhre was making hard runs. He had one play that he ran, kept the ball and play on the left side of the field, but Union didn't have a ton of space in the middle of the field. Couldn't really get service inside the box for Mikael Uhre or Milan. And so it's hard to judge his debut. I would imagine he starts one of these Red Bull games, whether it be on Wednesday or Saturday in the league. But yeah, the Union played so poor in this game against Toronto, and they created chances. Maybe they weren't the best chances, but chances they created, they really couldn't finish those off. And pretty disappointing. Bruce, nice to see you. Bruce says, seems goals late happen after he starts making substitute changes. Why not add another defender that late into the game? That's a good question. On the bench, you had Frankie Westfield and Olivier Bizar as your two defenders. And I think we could all agree if you're playing to hold on to the lead, you're bringing on Frankie Westfield and not Olivier Bizar to hold on to a lead. But you see Bradley come out and change two number 9s, bring in Milan and Mikau in the 67th minute. You bring in Jovan to shore up things in the midfield in the 81st, and then you bring one later on in the game, just bring on fresh legs, and Alejandro Bedoya and Kevin Sullivan in the 88th minute for Vassilev and Quinn Sullivan. And yeah, unfortunately with these changes, and we've seen it a couple times this year where he changes things up positionally and the Union concede a goal. And I think that's part of the reason why Jim Curtin would tell you, I don't make as many substitutions, and yeah, the fans get upset with me, but I don't want to disrupt the structure. That's what he would always say when he would sub out players, change up the lineups. He would never want to sub out more than 4 players because it disrupts the flow of the team, he would always say. And so, yeah, on one hand, I can understand why Jim Curtin isn't making his substitutes. At the same time, I can understand why Bradley Cornell is making them to keep fresh legs on, and these things are going to happen. But this late into the season, you really, really don't want to see those kind of mistakes. And again, Union conceded another late goal, and it's unfortunate to drop 2 points against Toronto, a struggling Toronto team that, yeah, they are in a rebuild. They have a lot of guys that are playing for their jobs next season. They do have something to play for. Yes, it's not the playoffs, so playing for their jobs, but at the end of the day, you got to get all 3 points against them, and the Union dropped 2. Vince says, I love Frankie, but you do not put him into a spicy, ugly, high-tension game. Red card waiting to happen. LOL. Yeah, we did see what happened against against Houston 3 weeks ago. Jazz says, 1 center forward and 1 off-ball forward to play off of, please. Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, the transfer window is still open. I would imagine if the Union do anything, it's got to be a center back, right? You're 1 injury away to Jakob Glesnes or Oluwatu Makanya before disaster happens. So we'll see. We'll see what the Union do. If they go out and sign anybody else, the transfer window, secondary MLS transfer window closes on August 21st. So Union, 11 days to go out and make something happen. And if you bring somebody in, it's got to be a center back, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get to blunder of the week. I'm not going to go ahead and share the banner yet because there were so many great blunder of the week nominations. And I saw Jillian Almany in here. I don't know if her husband Kyle's watching. If not, he's listening live to this back. I did tell him I was going to do this, but Kyle is definitely not catching blunder of the week, but he was up for the nomination for this week because driving to the stadium, I didn't look at the lineup because I was driving, obviously, but Kyle sends us in the group chat. He says, there's no Frankie Westfield on the bench. And then a couple minutes later, he texts back and he's like, just kidding. He's on the bench. I'm like, Kyle, what are you doing? Like, you should get blunder of the week for that, Kyle. But because there was other great nominations, you're spared this week. Jillian says he's not. He's asleep. So Kyle's going to have to listen back to this. But I did tell him. I did tell him that he was up for nomination for blunder of the week. And then before the game, before Toronto and Philadelphia, the MLS Spanish Twitter account put up a post of their interview with Jesus Bueno before the game. And they say that Jesus Bueno was talking to them before the Colorado Rapids match. And they show the Toronto logo right below. And the official account comes out, and the official Spanish account for MLS comes out and says, yeah, Jesus Bueno speaking before the Rapids game, even though down below it shares a Toronto logo. So that was a strong nomination. And then we got on Friday another nomination for Blunder of the Week. And again, you guys throughout the week, you guys can send in your Blunder of the Weeks on Twitter, on Substack. You guys can message me, Instagram, email. I think that's probably public out there someplace. Facebook. I don't know. There's so many ways for you guys to get in contact with me. And so if you guys have nominations, feel free to send them in. But Philly River sent in a really good nomination. This fell number 2 on our list of a Columbus Crew podcast. And I'm going to play the clip here for you guys. Their name is For the Crew. They were talking a couple days ago about Daniel Gazdag being their worst transfer ever in team history. And so I want you guys to hear this conversation. It's about 1:25, and then we'll get to the actual blunder of the week. But yeah, I can't believe this was a conversation.
I was thinking about this earlier yesterday, Matt, during the Lyon game. In Crew, do you know of any players that we've had a major loss on, like the worst transfer in our history, like as a club? Like a player that came in expecting great and then just flopped hard. Was there any players like that in the past, or could Gazdag
for big money?
Yeah, for big money.
I mean, early on in the DP era, there was like Mendoza, but I don't think we paid a ton for him.
Yeah, early in the era too. Like our DPs were kind of just mid in general, other than Higuain.
He was the one that I was gonna think of.
Mendoza.
Yeah. Maybe Kevin Molino.
Was Molino a DP?
Well, Molino was big money though.
He was. Yeah, he was right. He was on the cusp. Yeah.
Yeah, Molino was big money, and he did play some atrocious games. But in the end of the day, he gave us that win over Cincy.
He got the assist that mattered there. Yeah.
That's my boy now.
And he's still getting calls for Trinidad.
And he had some really good defensive plays towards the end of MLS Cup. So So yeah, I can't think of one.
So yeah, I was just thinking of like the biggest loss in Crew history in terms of player transfers. Currently, it's looking like Gazdag, which you hate to see for being our current season.
And Cole comments and says that I'm not sure if I've seen a positive comment about him. Jazz with a joke says they think he isn't hungry enough. Valerie says, boo. I mean, I get it, right? You pay a big fee for Daniel Gazdag. And we knew it here in Philadelphia. A lot of his goals came from the penalty spot, but then there are a lot of goals that we saw from Gazdag from open play. And so I got to imagine, right, that it does take a little bit of an adjustment for Daniel Gazdag going to a completely different system than what he was used to here in Philadelphia, where they play with 2 10s. And yeah, under Bradley Cornell, you switch to 2 10s, but it's different. I mean, it's a possession base with Ananse in Columbus. And a lot of what it is in Philadelphia with your 2 10s is a lot of pressing. You're not going to hold on to the ball a lot. And so I would imagine it's a adjustment period for Daniel Gazdag in Columbus. But to hear these guys discuss saying that Daniel Gazdag is the worst transfer ever in Columbus Crew history, like I don't know the Crew inside and out, right? But there's gotta be worse players that have transferred to Columbus Crew. I mean, you guys in the comments probably know players off the top of your head who would be a worse transfer than Daniel Gazdag. I mean, come on, what are we doing? Like Jazz says, top scorer in Union history. He knows how to score in MLS exactly. They were so excited when this deal was announced, and now because he's not scoring, the worst transfer ever. Valerie says definitely blunder of the week worthy. Cole says most fans are mad they extended him without seeing him play, and I think maybe that was part of the reason why Ernst Tanner wanted to move on from Daniel Gazdag, because he wanted to be paid more than what Ernst Tanner thought he was worth. And congrats to Daniel and his agent for getting the bag from Columbus. And maybe Ernst Tanner again strikes some masterclass and shows, I'm right again, that Daniel Gazdag is not worth the money. And now he's somebody else's problem. And yeah, well, if you listen to what all the Crew fans say, worst transfer ever in Columbus Crew history. Worst transfer ever. I don't agree. Michael says he doesn't seem like he fits the system as well as everyone imagined. Time may change that though. Yeah, exactly. Give him a full off season where he can train week in, week out with Ananse and this team. So I don't know. I don't know why these fans think Daniel's the worst transfer in Columbus history. There's no way that can be. But let's go ahead and do actual blunder of the week. So 4 nominations this week. Blunder of the week, you guys probably saw this. It's floating everywhere on social media. There was a lot of articles written about this because once again, we have another Bastian Schweinsteiger-esque moment in MLS history. Where remember when Schweinsteiger was announced to the Columbus media, Chicago media, they mentioned the World Cup and everything with Schweinsteiger acting like, yep, the World Cup's coming home because they have Schweinsteiger. It doesn't work that way. But blunder of the week goes out to LA Council member Heather Hutt telling Son, the former Tottenham Hotspur player, when he was introduced to the LA media, she says, I have one request. You got to help us win the U.S. You got to help the U.S. win the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And so here's the clip for all those who haven't seen this anywhere online yet.
No pressure, but when we, you know what I'm going to say, right? But when a World Cup comes, we're expecting a win here in Los Angeles for the USA, aren't we, everybody? And there you go. And so we're here to support you to get that done. So welcome. I bought something because my grandma taught me don't go somewhere without bringing a gift. So here you go. Thank you.
What do you guys think the gift was? For people who aren't watching this live on YouTube or watching back on YouTube, it was a little gift bag. What do you guys think the gift was? And she tells Son after that moment to open it up. And I know what it was, but what do you guys think was in that bag if you guys didn't see it? I mean, it's so awkward. It's so awkward. The World Cup's coming here next year. We have less than 365 days before the first game. And what makes this worse is this councilwoman. She's in charge of she represents the Korean community in LA. And she gets it this wrong. All it takes is a little bit of research. To know that Son cannot play for the US. He is South Korean. The area in LA that you represent, he is South Korean. He is not an American. And so for you to say we have one request, and she sounds so confident. She's like, you guys know what I'm gonna say, and I bet you there's people in the room like, don't say it. We know exactly what you're gonna say. It's gonna be another Bastian Schweinsteiger moment. And now all these foreigners are bashing us Americans because we don't know anything about soccer. And so Councilwoman Heather Hutt gets blunder of the week.
Yeah, not good.
No, not good at all. Not good at all. Valerie says sad. Valerie also says, I can't even imagine what Miss Clueless gave him. And Vince says, LAFC fans don't know ball. Their fake fans know even less. So, so funny. Chivas 2.0. But yes, Valerie, she gave him cufflinks. So nice gift and everything. Was not expecting that to be in the little gift basket, but oh man, all it takes is a little bit research. And for Son and I forget the one owner on stage there, and then John Thornton, the general manager on stage too with Son. I have no clue how they kept a straight face through that awkward moment, but that's pretty much it for the podcast. A little bit over an hour. So if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcasts of The Free Kick. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Free Kick Pod, live every single podcast on YouTube. Also, you can find the goals breakdown videos on YouTube as well. In the process of finishing that up. So it's either going to be released late tonight or sometime tomorrow on Monday. And then you guys can check out my writing. I do have a match recap article out on my Substack, thefreekick.substack.com, where you can check out my articles, my goals breakdown video, and the podcast all in one place. Super easy for you guys, but I appreciate you guys interacting, you guys keeping me updated with so many scores going on tonight. And it is unfortunate that the Union don't come away with 3 points against Toronto, especially when you look at what happened with Nashville, what happens tonight, this evening with Cincinnati. And I saw you guys' comments. It's 1-1 between Inter Miami and Orlando City. Maybe Orlando City can do the Union a solid, and all in all, it would be a pretty good weekend. Would have been a better weekend for the Union if they could have came away with 3 points. But I do appreciate you guys commenting. I do appreciate the new intro video that I got made. Hopefully you guys like it. You guys at the beginning of the show said I got to keep the hello and welcome. So once I go back and edit this for the RSS feed, we'll see how awkward it is. You guys got to be honest with me. That comment on Spotify, people that comment on Substack, or even you guys that comment on YouTube, even people that are watching it live. You guys got to let me know, does the hello and welcome with the new intro sound awkward? But it's going to be a work in progress. I am happy with the intro. Hello and welcome is iconic. So how can we end that? How can we end that? But super excited to see, hopefully, a Philadelphia Union victory on Wednesday as they face the New York Red Bulls in the U.S. Open Cup. The winner of that game goes and takes on Nashville and Geodis Park. So unfortunately for the Union, no more U.S. Open home games after Wednesday night. And then the Union go up to Harrison, New Jersey, their second home, take on the New York Red Bulls once again. Hopefully the Union can come away with all 3 points. Hopefully a lot of you guys are traveling up to Harrison on Saturday. I know the Union fans, Union faithful, they travel well every single time the Union head up I-95 to take on New York Red Bulls. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.